live in a very different world compared to these novels that are specifically created and altered to attract teenagers in the best way possible. What are we talking about? These novels are in the rise and are being more teenagers find the element of suspense and being rebellion the key point of why I want to read these books and why the environment that they create around these books are very cool and very popular. And this is why the novels and these books have an effect on how teenagers act and how their attitude is altered as they grow up as they are addicted to these, especially circumstance. I'm going to be analyzing two things. Firstly, why does this create a rebellious teenage generation? And secondly, let's analyze the practical outcomes and what happens after these individuals are affected and negatively affected by these books. So firstly, why does this create a rebellious teenage generation? The first reason is that the influence that these teenage novels have upon them. So they usually choose elements or choose parts and parcels of the book that they are attracted to. What are these parts and what are these elements? So it's either A, the element of being rebellion or fighting against a specific authority, quote Hunger Games and Maze Runner, because when they told him not to run into that maze, he still chose to run into that maze because either he was curious or he wanted to fight for the people that were left behind. Either way, the world that we live in is completely different from the world that is was made. So it's very risky to make certain decisions that are unpredictable and that you might not know the outcomes of. However, in these novels, it always seems right. Whatever decision that you make, or whatever choice that you take in that book, always seems right and always works out for you. However, these are not situations that we have in our world, and this is why there was a rise of like violent teenagers and very aggressive teenagers when there was a rise of very violent books that propagate violence and propagate aggressiveness. For example, and even when it comes to like movies that propagate violence and aggressiveness, when it comes to like things like James Bond and so on and so forth. Secondly, let's talk about like self-decision. Like the decision that you make and you have as a person is one that has to be analyzed thoroughly and has to be made for a productive decision, not because you think it's right. What are we talking about? Like, there are a lot of restrictions that are placed upon teenagers because of the nature of being very exposed to a plethora of things and a very liberal nature that teenagers have in the current generation. So they want to do a lot of things and they want to experience a lot of things. However, the parents or teachers or any other authority that has control over these individuals don't want them to experience everything, and especially at that age, because they understand that these individuals aren't at the most rational point in their life and they cannot make every other decision for themselves. So when the other authorities or when their parents or teachers, other individuals that have more experience and that want to protect them for the better, try to protect individuals by this restrictions on these individuals, they chose to rebel against these individuals and these particular authorities because they think that they are right, especially influenced by these books where there is a specific authority fighting against the majority, and things don't go their way. So the only way that they will get over that situation is if they fight and if they may do something out of the ordinary, and that is going to get them in the worst of position, especially if they do it in our world. The third reason is the impressionability and the irrationality of teenagers in our world. So when it comes to these books, they become addicted to it. It's either A, they become addicted because of their friends and other teenagers who create a popularity because they say, oh, Hunger Games, Hunger Games, Hunger Games. They sell the merchandise, they populate movies, and they populate the books because they make it the first row of books when you go into a bookstore. All these things lead to these books and these novels becoming creating an influence over teenagers, because the cumulative effect is unpredictable, because you don't know how teenagers will react to these novels. Most of them react negatively because they don't rationalize that these novels are altered in a way to to tell themselves that I need to be this way. I need to be better than I already am, because there is a better world that waits for me, or there is a better paradigm that waits for me after I take this particular decision. However, they don't understand, or they don't get particular guidance from their parents or from their teachers, because they think that standing on my own feet and doing it by myself makes it seem cooler and makes it seem more popular, and I will have a greater influence among my group of friends or among my group of the clique that I have. This includes them being like those individuals or like those idols in those novels as well. Before I move on, yes, Ryan.
That's what you're telling me is exactly the nature of teenagers. But similarly, it can also be mitigated when you have proper guidelines from education and also proper guidelines from parents. Tell me why is that not effective and not justified under
So obviously there are rebellious teenagers and teenagers that don't listen to their parents and teachers. The problem here is that with the rise of these novels, it increases the magnitude of that harm, because now more teenagers are part of that cycle, because they all read books and they all want to read books. So the only choice that I have here, and if I am not that a staunch follower of books, I will only read famous books, and all these books are the famous books. The books that propagate these kind of values are the famous books, and this is the majority of teenagers that are exposed to these kind of things and that are exposed to these kind of values. You can't run away from it, because at the end of the day, they won't listen to their parents and their teachers, no matter how much you want to advise them. Lastly, what strengthens the rhetoric that what these books say are really good? Because the ending of these books, it's always very good. It's always one that favors that the hero or the protagonist in the book. So it always makes it seem like whatever decision you take, at the end of the day you will succeed, and at the end of the day you will be a better off person. That isn't true, because we have to teach teenagers that every decision has its risks and has the pros and its cons. So we have to sometimes we have to sacrifice, and sometimes we have to be disciplined in our decision, especially when we're teenagers, because we haven't reached the age of rationality and we don't make the best decision possible. So this is why they don't try to avenge other people. They don't try to take the law or the whatever actions that they want to do. They don't take it upon themselves. They need the guidance of other people, and they need to make it as moral and rational as possible. For all those reasons, we regret the rise of these novels, especially since it brings bad effect to teenagers.
Yes, we were speech here.
Speaker, we are very disappointed because side government totally missed a huge part of today's debate. You have to realize that these novels don't only affect teenagers, are not only directed to teenagers. They are not the only ones who read and get influenced, right? Because this debate is not only about the teens, but about the adults who read them as well. Before I proceed with my substantives and let's take a look at several rebuttals I have. So they said how these novels generally attract people to read them, right? And therefore you have a wide audience. But you see, the reason why these books attract people to buy them and read them is because of the relatable problems that in these stories. When you have problems like gender stereotypes, which is going on in the world right now, and teenagers can relate to it. That's why they buy the book. They buy the book because they feel like they can understand the book more and relate to it. Right? Second one, on your point on rebellious teenagers. Look, either way, these rebellious teenagers will happen anyway, right? Because naturally, teenagers are rebellious, but we have to realize not all of them are, right? Because education and parents are those guidelines that you have. to try and teach these individuals and prevent them from making the wrong choices. You see, there's a limit to how much a fictional novel or a story can affect you, right? For example, if you watch a lot of CSI or NCIS, because you're only interested in that story means there'll be a much lesser impact. If you compare it to a story where you can relate to it and you understand what's going on, this is where you can attract those values and relate it to yourself and construct yourself and make yourself a better person as a whole. After my rebuttals. So they also said how you never know how teenagers are going to react, which is exactly the point. I mean, if you don't know how they're going to react, it's extremely unjustified for you to generalize all teenagers to take this as a very bad influence. For example, just because you play a lot of violent video games, this does not necessarily make you a violent person as a whole, right? They also talked to you about this idea on influence and how you influence everyone around you, right? Things like this. But you have to realize that not everyone will follow these harmful things, right? Not everyone is stupid. They will obviously actualize and think about it before they follow a particular action. But before I proceed, any problems?
So what is the key benefit that you get out of this book besides relating to the problem? Because I don't think it's true.
No, look, when you get to relate to a problem, that is where you can make yourself a better person. When you push yourself to fight for a particular cause, because you know these books give you that form of inspiration, that form of hope, which is very important. But before I proceed, let us understand what post-apocalyptic fiction is all about, right? Because this is fiction where they paint you a picture, how your world is now out of order and for example, your resources are depleting and things like this. This can also become a preemption of the future, right? Of future problems. And the reason why these fictional stories are good because of two things. Number one, they tend to promote a show of survival, right? Where basically you can learn and you teach people how to survive in rough situations, in situations where you cannot opt out of, where you're being discriminated. They teach you how to survive in these situations. Number two, they also tend to show you a contribution to a war, for example. Where the main character in Hunger Games, for example, is a female character, where they go against the gender stereotype that's going around the world right now, right? The reason why individuals can learn from these novels is because there's a wide audience, and this audience is connected with the novel because they believe what the novel says. We believe that's where you can relate to it. You add up the fact that you can relate to the story and that it plays a very huge influence to you. We believe you can improve as a person as a whole. Because this is a small in the future, right? It's a guideline to the future. It also paints you the problems and how to solve it, which will give you an insight on how to do so. Even if there are certain negatives to these stories, at least they can learn about these problems through exposure, right? For example, just because the book promotes drugs, right? By getting exposed to it, that's where you can learn how it's bad, which is why you have education and teachers to tell you that this is wrong, you shouldn't follow it, but take those positive values instead. But before we see
okay, since you say that most of these individuals buy these books because they can relate to the cause or the problem that arise in these books, what about the individuals that still need good novels out there but can't have that because they can't relate to any of the problems that these novels want to relate to?
No, look, that doesn't make any sense. How can you not relate to a problem? If you can't relate to the problem, you don't buy it. So what? That doesn't affect anything. This debate is about those people who can relate to the problems and how we help them, right? So let's take a look at my first substantive on the impact on the people, on the first level, right? We have to realize that fiction plays an extremely major role to the life of people. In movies, for example, right? Two things. Number one, there's fiction about current problems in different scenarios, and there's also, number two, fiction that depicts possible future problems. On the first one, on current problems, for example, gender stereotypes, racial stereotypes, right? These are, they will tell you the harms of this and what the main character is going through. For example, at the start of the story, the character is being bullied. By the end of the story, the character rises and tells people, you cannot push me down, I will still stand. We believe this is very good. This good ending is good because you're indirectly painting a message to people that in order for you to function, you need to change these stereotypes, and this is what pushes them to fight for that drive. On the second type of fiction that depicts possible future problems, right? For example, you're not having enough resources or wars happening, right? Now, this might happen, whatever it is, this might happen, and this platform of exposure to it, where you cannot get can only happen through novels. You get two different perspectives. On the second level, how you now connect with people. Because when people can relate to it and these minorities read about it, you give them motivation. Because these novels paint a toxic situation being overcome, right? So you incentivize them to push for their cause, no matter who they are, right? Because you can paint the most conservative society ever and show you how these minorities can still overcome it, although the harms they're going through. Second argument, how the inter-platform to exposure to societal problems is unobtainable through normal educational platforms. Education teaches you maths and science, not about minorities and your rights, right? So this fiction is the only thing that can teach you this, because you have a framework and list of problems, plus the education of moral values. It constructs how you problems, makes you a better person. Second level, how you construct your identity. Because now when you're interested and you get that form of motivation, we believe this is where you can also contribute in the discourse on how to push for your goal, because you're being influenced by a credible source. I'm very proud to take this bit. Thank you.
The benefits that come from side opposition aren't mutually exclusive to post-apocalyptic teenage novels, because things like shaming individuals who are homophobic, or things like shaming individuals who are sexist, or fighting bullies in schools are not exclusive specifically towards these post-apocalyptic gender novels. The prime characteristic of these novels are they are rebellious, and they are targeted to ignite the rebellious nature of teenagers. So side opposition today has to accept that rebelliousness has played a significant role in these post-apocalyptic teenage novels, like Hunger Games rebelling against an authority that's clamping down on your rights, or in Maze Runner that's rebelling against authorities that tell you to do, but you still do it anyway. So side opposition in this debate tell us not that novels are promoting fighting bullying, or not that these novels are promoting that women can do as well as men. They have to tell us why the rebellious nature is intrinsic towards teenagers and why it's beneficial for teenagers, and we're here to tell you otherwise. So the ignition, the fact that this ignites the rebellious nature is bad, because the rise of novels create an atmosphere that pushes to fight authorities, even when those authorities do things in the best interest of teenagers. Because when teenagers, because of movements like only you know what you can do off the cage means parents that cage you in an environment where you feel uncomfortable about. A lot of times parents do this in the best interest of children. For example, if you want to go to a party or go to a particular gang, we think that there are reasons why parents don't want to approach these kinds of particular environments, and we think they are perfectly legitimate reasons, which is why we accord specific rights to parents that are not accorded to teenagers themselves, and we allow parents to make many decisions that concern the life of teenagers when teenagers are the ones that are being affected. So these are the kind of rebellious natures that we don't want to have with children, because it makes it harder for them to become individuals who can make decisions in the future. Two questions side opposition before I move on to my positive man. One, what about relatability and whether or not these problems are relatable to the children's lives and why that's beneficial in general? First of all, does it necessarily relate? I don't know how Hunger Games or like Maze Runner actually relates to what you face in school. You don't face in Armageddon where everybody's trying to kill you. So these are kinds of the environments that don't relate to the teenagers face through in every day. It's a lie to say that they do. But secondly, even if it's worse, even if it's true that these are relatable and we are engaging with the best case scenario, it's even worse, because you're more likely to believe that source and how you solve problems based on that novel, instead of parents and teachers telling you how to solve bullying. When you don't fight the bully back and beat him up because you have to fight the authority, you report to the parents, you report to teachers, you do things in the more diplomatic way, because these novels will pull you in because they relate to you, and you're more likely to listen to the novels instead of teachers who just bore you to sleep. We think these are the kinds of problems that exist. But the next thing is that why can't we have regulation? Because Ryan's POI comment was that, oh no, we can have regulation to mitigate rebellious natures of children. But that's an argument to concede first, that the rebellious nature is there in the first place, and therefore we have to take preemptive measures to prevent it. But secondly, all the regulations don't work because of your own characterization. Because regulations won't work because teenagers don't listen to you when they are tied down to the relatability of the novel, and they're less likely to listen to you. So all the other benefits of gender, being a teenager that's being bullied, are not mutually exclusive to post-apocalyptic teenage novels that are geared specifically into fighting authority and against individuals who clamp down on your rights as a person. Before I move on to my second rebuttal point,
You must just realize that you can now solve the problem much better because you now have a wider spectrum on how to solve it. But you have this book telling you how to solve it, plus parents and educational platforms trying to help.
In that argument, you have to prove firstly why the books telling you how to solve a problem is better than people actually with actual experience, with actual forms of information telling you to solve a problem. You have to tell us why a book is more reliable than a person who has actually gone through lives and similar problems that you have faced when you were a teenager and tell you how to do it. If you don't, that argument does not fly. But secondly, the stories help you, and they told us that these stories help you go through lives. Again, not really in spirit of the post-apocalyptic model to begin with, but even worse, the method in which you solve the problem is wrong, and that is prioritized in that particular novel. So all you do in that particular novel is you do what you want to do because you know what you want, and you should be able to do what you want. So this side of the house doesn't necessarily tell you. My positive method, why is practically harmful for teenagers? Firstly, it creates an environment or atmosphere of coolness, and you have to be associated with this. And it happens all the time in schools, right? When you have to want to be part of the popular group, or you have to do a particular thing to be a part of the popular gang. And people often want to do that because they associate happiness with being part of the popular gang or being part of the coolest thing in town. This means that it forces more teenagers to be a part of this movement, or be a part of this atmosphere where you have to rebel, you have to associate that you know what's best for yourself, and you have to make decisions in your own hands. I think that these kinds of specific environment forces teenagers that in fact previously were never ever rebellious, or previously teenagers who are individuals who are passive in nature, who will probably listen to parents and take their arguments or points into consideration when making a decision. But even worse, the children that are already rebellious and are already aggressive towards individuals and authority will be even more ignited in order to fight authority, because they are pushed by because they're impressionable, they're vulnerable, and they're pushed by sources that they think are the ones meant, and they think are the ones that are best for them. I think that this is harmful because if you don't follow this particular cool environment, you're opinionated because you're not a game kid, you're not a loser kid, you're not a kid that doesn't actually follow the particular sphere or that atmosphere that you wanted to propagate for. Secondly, the calculation or the risk of decisions. So there's the reason why we don't let teenagers make their own decisions, even if it concerns their own body and their own self. Before I move on to the last point, are you going to ban every single novel, whether fiction or not, talking about politics, because that somehow implies the rebellious nature instead of teenagers?
So no, okay, right? I don't think that we have to ban all kinds of novels, but in fact, the point at which there is a rise, the debate is about discussion and not a banning. So it's whether or not that rise is beneficial towards teenagers, whether or not rebellious teenagers are beneficial for their own selves, and they have to tell us why rebellious teenagers are in fact beneficial to these individuals. Let's look at calculated risk decisions, and whether or not these decisions are naturally beneficial to these individuals. So people are less likely going to make decisions in the best interest of them because they often associate things like being cool. So if you want to go to that party really badly and you want to get drunk and do a lot of things, and your parents don't let you, you are less likely not to be listening to your parents. You're less likely to be susceptible or taking their arguments or points into consideration because you know what you want to do and you have to fight the case. These are the kinds of environments you put these individuals for, and even worse, people that previously would not have done it if the movement never existed or the environment or atmosphere never existed will now be more likely to do this particular thing. I think that's very harmful for the individuals because even in the absolute best case scenario, their parents are wrong and they have made a mistake, we still accord rights to them, and that's in a minority of cases. The point is, parents know what's best for you, and we want to make it less harder for them to grow these children and make these children's lives much better. And we make the children more rebellious and fight against the authority because they think it's correct for them, even if they don't have all the information in the world. We don't think that's the best interest for these children to become better people. Thank you.
Yes, we have reached the beginning of
Side governments are obviously people who don't read much, because post-apocalyptic novels, no matter what kind of picture or scenario that they depict, are novels that talk about problems that are in that already exist in status quo, i.e. your rights as a minority being clamped down and etc. Right? The story in the novel depicts a story of victory, how these minorities rise up against majorities that clamps down on their rights.
i.e. the Hunger Games, right? How these individuals organize a rebellion to rebel against the government that clamps down on their rights as individuals of a particular state. These are stories that are depicted in these novels. We think it's extremely beneficial to these teenagers in the fight of pushing for a particular change to happen. Construction of identity to individuals, right? Because all these rebellious things that they want to talk about happens nonetheless, no matter what kind of novels that they read. That's number one. And number two is also these are the harms that are not exclusive. We think we can mitigate that through many different factors, i.e. guidance and etc. also, right? Also, you also cannot generalize something that causes rebellion, right? Meaning you cannot generalize sit down. You cannot generalize teen novels as the only factor that drives rebellion in teenagers. It's extremely unfair. I'm going to prove to you why the benefit outweighs the harms, and it's much more better for you to side with this, right? I have three issues for you today in today's debate, right? Number one, let's talk about the nature of novels, how novels impact the people. Number two, I'm going to talk about the psyche of teenagers, since it's the biggest clash in today's debate so far. Thirdly, I'm going to talk about how you drive individuals in furthering a particular cause for rights, etc. Number one, let's talk about the nature of these novels also, right? Because I'm going to talk to you about how these novels depicts and pictures a problem in status quo, i.e. LGBT rights, i.e. feminist rights, or generally majority versus minority. And they picture it in a different scenario where it becomes a war, where it leads to an apocalypse because you don't solve that problem. These are certain values or moral values that these novels want to instill into these individuals, saying that if you don't solve this problem, here's the scenario that you can face in the future. And in order for you to solve that problem, you as minorities have to stand up and fight for your rights. These are certain moral values that these novels instill in these individuals, right? Yes, it may be rebel-centric, like Hunger Games, but I think that's good, because these are novels that are approved, that are reviewed. They don't entrench in glory, you don't entrench in like Nazism, etc. Right? Sure, there may be some rebellion, but the rebellion is for the greater good of fighting for rights for your minorities, right? I.e. Hunger Games, right? Exactly what Roshan said. When you as a minority organize a rebellion in order to fight back on the government that clamps down on your rights, right? It's a depiction you as a minority have to stand up to fight against teenagers, right? But before that, sure.
So you are forgetting that there are people that are left out to the so-called race of victory, and those are individuals that can't find novels that they are so-called related to, because all the novels they are talking about don't help them in any way possible.
No, we don't think so, because we think there are certain problems that people will face also, right? Maybe novel A may not relate to your problem, novel B can relate to your problem also. Every single individual has a problem that they have to solve. We think a novel helps them even. But you need to understand that this debate does not revolve around teenagers only. This debate also revolves around adults, people who are of higher ages that read these novels also. How do you impact them?
Right.
You drive them. If they are minorities, you drive the fighting spirit in them to fight for their rights, to push for their cause, right? If they are from the majority, when they see all the atrocious apocalypse that are going to happen because of these problems, we think you drive them to tone down on being called or being aggressive towards minorities also. This does not revolve around teenagers. I'm going to explain that to you now, right? But firstly, let's talk about the psyche of teenagers, right? Because teenagers are rebellious and etc. also. Three things. You can control the rebellious nature inside of teenagers through proper education, right? How rebelling against your parents is something that is bad. How environment that you live in already does not match in these actions also. In order for you to actualize, you need to become an individual that upholds and obliges with all these moral values. We think it's extremely beneficial in order to mitigate these things also. Thirdly, people are not that stupid, right? Because teenagers don't have a stable income. In order for them to have their normal lives, they need their parents, they need their family also. Knowing that rebelling against their family means cutting off relationship with their family, these teenagers are not that stupid in order to sacrifice their whole livelihood and their whole teenagehood just in order because the novel tells them so, right? And also, these are novels that are content reviewed. Exactly what I'm going to talk to you about now, right? How disallowing due to irrational mindset and etc. Right? We only disallow an individual to view or to see a certain stuff where there is a major harm in it, i.e. forwarding the Nazi propaganda, i.e. entrenching in gory or murderous or glorifying harmful crimes and etc. Right? Look, these are novels
teenagers, suitable for teenagers, which does not entrench in serious crimes, which does not entrench in Nazism and etc. Right? We think it's suitable for teenage viewing. That's how you construct your identity, because thirdly, you allow the platform for exposure for teenagers to construct their identity, revolving around the problems that are surrounding them, right? Because sure, teenagers are impressionable, they may get addicted to it, right? But watching anime, watching NCIS wouldn't make you a criminal, it wouldn't make you a policeman also. But when you have a problem that relates directly to the problem that you're facing, when you're a minority depicted in the story trying to fight for your rights, and you are also the minority in reality, it drives the inspiration in you to fight for the cause, right? We think the more you stop them, the more the reverse psychology comes to play, right? Because the more you hinder these individuals from not accessing these things, the more you drive their want into getting these things, right? We think it's much more harmful when you don't have other factors to stop them, right? Sure, there may be some form of harms, but that harm can be mitigated through proper education also. It's much better in constructing ideology, right? But how is this different from going to a party, right? Because going to a party, there's a tangible environment. When you see your friends using drugs, then you think it's good also. But it's a novel, right? Novel doesn't necessarily have to talk about all these things. You can talk about your rebellion, but a rebellion comes with a moral value. How minorities are. We think there's a significant difference between the impact also. But what are the benefits of the impact, right? When you have people relating to the problems, you drive minorities to fight for their cause even more. You drive majorities to not antagonize individuals even more. We think you feed into the discourse, the discussion of solving the problem even more, i.e. furthering the cause of the movement, furthering the cause of the LGBT movement, and etc. In order for you to feed and contribute to the discourse, you need to have a proper identity. That identity can only be constructed when you allow teenagers proper exposure and proper guidance. We provide both. I think we take today's debate.
Rebellious nature isn't something that occurs naturally. Instead, rebellious nature happens with a reason and a purpose. It happens through influence. And when the rise of teenage post-apocalyptic novels propagate rebellion over a hierarchy, and teenagers read them, it might be too late to take preventive measures. I'm going to do a few things in my whip speech. First, I'm going to deal with two main issues that I thought were really important in this debate. Firstly, is relatability harmful, or whether or not relatability plays a huge part of this debate? Secondly, I'm going to talk about whether or not novels are actually a depiction of current day problems, and whether or not teenagers the real people who have to deal with these problems. Let's go straight to my first issue on is relatability harmful? Because they said that these novels have relatable values, and that the leader of opposition said, and I quote, "When you relate to them, you become a better person." Now, the response to this is simple. First, let's compare the magnitude of relatability. How severe is relatability in this debate? Side opposition has to concede to the fact that most of all post-apocalyptic novels propagate rebellion. A rebellious nature is bad and not good. But they propagate these values as good moral values that every teen should continue on propagating. They told us that teenagers can relate to values together. In this case, rebellion. Let me give you an analogy. If your best friend goes to a party and your parents won't let you to go to the same party because they're afraid of you. They take preventive measures to not allow you to go to that same party. You become rebellious, and the restrictions can't keep you down because these values tie you down to rebellious nature. You won't care about what your parents say. You won't care about the authority because you will think that they are the hierarchy preventing you to go to something, to an event which you think is better than staying at home doing your homework. You don't become a better person once you read these books. You become a different one. The relatability to their side is the worst one because they are the ones that perpetuate the rebellious nature towards teenagers. They are the ones that promote rebellious nature among teens. They are the ones that want teenagers to fight for their own rights when it isn't their fight, but instead it's a community fight. So the conclusion to this is that relatability on their side is far more harmful because their best case scenario is that teenagers would rebel over the hierarchy, which in this case are the parents or the authority, which instead bring them a better job than what they think they are doing. That's my second issue on how novels are a depiction of current day problems and why teenagers aren't the ones who are supposed to be who aren't the ones to be handling them properly. So opposition talked about how novels are a current day problem. They told us that it's a depiction of the hierarchy of the government, how you have to fight for your own rights when you're a teenager. So the problem to this is that these novels are depicted towards teenagers. Yes, towards adults, the leader of towards teenagers, because not all adults rather fondle upon Hunger Games that much, but instead teenagers do so well. So all these things are worse off dealt by teenagers because that's what Ryan wanted in and on itself. Why does a teenager have to worry about a systematic discrimination against an entire race? It's not about their battle, it's about the community battle. Because the rise of these books, and the second response to this is that the rise of these books, like the Hunger Games, which depict rebellious nature, and a book called Divergent, which propagate rebellion, these rises are the reasons fiction and non-fiction books to perpetuate better moral value other than rebellious nature are being shunned down because of this sudden rise of rebellious nature in these books. Other books are being shunned down. Other books are not gaining that much popularity when they are the ones that have the proper moral values that just have to follow. Because of this nature and because of the rise of these other books, make it seem to a teenager that every book will have a rebellious nature which you have to adapt to. But before I move on into
teenagers are future leaders of society. The rebellion depicted in these novels are rebellions for a cause, not just rebellion to screw people over. There's a moral value behind it. Why is that not justified for the exposure to construct the identity of teenagers?
So when a rebellious movement happens in Malaysia, you know who to blame. We on itself, teenagers who don't have the authority shouldn't be the ones handling this type of matter. You think that they already have the authority, which are their parents, who can also handle out this discrimination. We don't think that when they get influenced by these kind of books, they suddenly have the right to fight for their movement or whatever. So no, thank you. Now, because of the constant nature and because of the rise, teenagers who don't, let's look at to the perspective of teenagers who don't want to read these books, who prefer to read other types of books. And because of this rise, they are being forced to read these books and adapt to that nature. They are being forced to adapt to rebellious nature because there aren't any other books in the market. The only book that's cheap because it's being risen to a high popularity is Hunger Games because most teenagers would rather read that rather than How to Kill a Mockingjay, for example. So the conclusion is that other books get shut down. Other books do not have the opportunity to rise to popularity when those books are the ones that bring better moral values in today's society rather than other ones. So let's look at let me give you an overview of our side. Let me give you some defensive rebuttals. Because we're talking about this motion about post-apocalyptic teenage novels. propagate rebellious nature. And Roshan told you why it's practically a reason that teenagers achieve popularity towards happiness. How they would do whatever they want. They would even be rebellious just to become popular. If they don't, you get discriminated. We don't see any form of response from Ryan. Ryan only wanted to tell you is teenagers to be rebellious, teenagers to lead a movement by themselves rather than doing what they do best and just sitting at home, relaxing there. Anyway, so all in all, we give you a few things. We tell you that teenagers aren't meant to handle this type of matter, and we think that the rise of these books are shutting down other books which profess the real moral values. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, we don't care if other books are not getting bought by other people because that's irrelevant for today's debate. Today's debate is about whether or not these post-apocalyptic teenage novels are good for society and teenagers. Nothing to do with other books that are not being read in Interschool and things like that. Two issues for you in today's debate. This is very harmful to society, even though they can relate to their problems, and how does this affect the teenagers as a whole? So on how does it affect teenagers? They think that teenagers are irrational. Just because books say so, they will follow it. That's really far-fetched because what we actually say is that teenagers will relate to it. Teenagers will know that, what the book is saying is they're facing the same problems, or they don't get their rights, where they don't get their rights that where they are being oppressed and things like that. This will not lead to something like Nazis and things like that. That's very far-fetched coming out from side government. They say that how they'll do anything just to be cool, just be popular and things like that. In novels, they fight for their rights, not for some petty little things. These things are important. We should not be fueling on these things is what side government is trying to say. Teenagers are the future leaders of the country. And if we don't expose teenagers to the issues that's going on in the world, we don't expose teenagers to oppression that's happening towards minorities, it's hard for them to know all these issues later on. Right now, when we have the popularity of these post-apocalyptic books, where people know about law, about how the order is over there, how people are being oppressed and things like that, they will find information about it. They will try to know why this is happening, how to solve it. Sure, they're teenagers, they can't do much, but this will affect them when later on. This will make them more mature in their thinking, more rational about what decisions that they're going to make. Yes, Ryan already told you that they have already formed of guidance as parents and things like that. Now we add another form of guidance for storybooks. There's nothing bad about having another form of guidance, and side government still has not proven that before. Yes.
Okay, since you want more teenagers to relate to more stories, and these teenage novels somehow help these teenagers relate to stories, why is it that they only must relate to these post-apocalyptic teenage novels? Like, why can't they relate to other teenage novels that are out in the market that don't get any shine on them?
It's okay, they can relate, but what you're talking about today is about relating to these kind of novels as a whole. We're talking about whether or not these novels are good. We're not saying that the novels aren't good at all. We're just saying that these novels, that we don't regret the rise of these post-apocalyptic novels. We're telling you that it is good and there's no harms from it. Sit down. Science fiction already sets a boundary of where humankind will reach. I might came here and talk to you about how when you have a post, it sets a framework about what will happen. Society will not to have in on. This is not responded at all by side government, and we think that it's a very important argument in today's debate. Post-apocalyptic societies are placed in a harsh situation. It's very hard living in those areas and things like that. That is why we said this. That is why that we need post-apocalyptic books. Just because the teenagers doesn't mean that only teenagers read it. Adults read it too. It inspires them the fighting spirit. It gives them a framework of what will happen if they continue doing all these negative things, such as wasting their resources and things like that. however, sure, they don't bring such a big effect as adults do and things like that. But we have already told you this will help them in the future. It's easier for them to relate to the problem, to understand what happened, understand how to face the problem, understand how to solve the thing. This view of teenagers, there's nothing big about it. Sure, there'll be some form of rebellion, but that is very minimal. There's only a small to show how teenagers feel. So just to give the teenagers something to relate to, nothing to bring out some really big rebellion or something to overthrow the government and things like that. So why are books better than people giving things like that? What people are doing right now is very slow. The movement of bringing up something is very give you proper books give you the facts and the information, something to relate to, something to give you a fighting spirit to go towards all this. These authors do not simply write a book without knowing what's going on in status quo. They will know what they're talking about, what they're writing. Please sit down. This content is already checked and reviewed by, so this content is not something that's bad, and that's what Ryan have already talked to you about. So conclusion to this is that teenagers do benefit from this. They have something to relate to, and that's what we are proving to you today in today's debate. Yeah.
Obviously, these contents are very fine. It's good to sell books that are post-apocalyptic and say that you need to fight against a certain rebellion. But the subliminal message there, to especially teenagers, is that you need to take that into account. You need to act in that way to get over with your problem.
No, we're just saying relate to. Sure, they can follow the way, but they'll do it later on because you can't do it as a teen. They know that if you're gonna rebel at that point in time, you're gonna lose your teenage, you're gonna lose your developing ages and things like that. This is something for them to relate to, so that they understand the issues when they grow up and when they try to solve the problem. Because we already told you that teenagers are the future leaders of the country. So on the second issue, is this very harmful towards society? Some governments say that it's harmful because it gives a rebellion spirit, because it gives people a way to fight the authorities, to form rebellions and things like that, because they feel it's something wrong. Then they came to the party and things like that. I already told you that in the novel, when you have these rebellious things, it's for the rights. It's for people who are oppressed, for people who need their rights, not some petty little things that side government came here and talked about. They told you that some people will not have the proper book to relate to, like they don't have something to express their problem with. It's okay, we're talking about how it's not bad for people who can relate to the problem. It's not bad for people who understand who can relate to a character in the story, in the novel as well. This gives people the fighting spirit towards their fighting spirit and things like that. We tell you that it's beneficial for both for the whole of society. They don't even prove, they haven't give a sufficient rebuttal towards that. We have already told you that how not only teenagers read this, and other people do, like adults do, and gives the frame the adults to solve problem because they want that problem to happen as a whole. Teenagers who are future leaders, they can understand the issue properly, information, understand why is this happening, understand how to solve it. So conclusion to this, that you at all, and you actually benefit from it, even though teenagers are mostly reading it. With that, I'm very proud to post.
Sorry. This debate was simple, right? It boiled down into two major issues. Number one, the psyche of teenagers. Number two, which side solves the problem better? The existing problem that has been pushed to you upon my side opposition today. But before I move on to those issues, let me answer a question. The question becomes, these novels, are they morally justified, or are they just novels that depict rebellion for no cause at all? No, we don't think so. We think these are novels a real problem that's happening in the society. Usually a clamping of rights of the majority onto the minority, right? Then you have rebellion happening, then you have diplomatic talks happening also. Rebellion is not the only element inside these novels also. We think it depicts a realistic problem that's happening in the future now, but they depict it in a different scenario. We think these are the nature of novels that we're talking about. Firstly, let's talk about the psyche of teenagers now. Because what did three concepting speakers told us, right, that these are teenagers that are rebellious, irrational, impressionable, etc. Right? No, we don't think so. We think these are harms that exist nonetheless. If we mitigate and control with proper education, when you live in a society that's stigmatized on atrocious and also disgusting actions. Meaning these are teenagers who are not stupid but want to act on how society functions. Meaning society functions like this. Without a cause is stupid. Killing somebody without a cause is stupid. They will be stigmatized for it. Then these teenagers will not want to opt in for it. This is exactly what I told you, which wasn't responded by Daniel McJar at the end of the day also, right? But also, you only ban something or you regret showing these individuals something if it's extremely harmful, i.e. glorifying atrocious crimes, i.e. killing, raping, and etc. Right? We don't think these novels fall into this criteria. We think these novels fall into the criteria of rebelling for a cause, fighting for a cause, bringing moral values inside teenagers, right? We think these novels are likely to instill moral values and instill a constructive identity construction into teenagers compared to just instilling rebellious natures inside of teenagers, right? Because we think even if these rebellious natures will be sparked, there are certain check and balances also. But then they ask us a question, why one novel only? Then other novels won't get the limelight. That is not our burden to prove. Our burden to prove to you is that why these novels are much more beneficial. We don't care if other novels will not have the limelight. If people are interested in reading that novel, then fine, go ahead with it, right? We're talking about if teenagers or if adults are interested in reading a teenage novel, what is the benefit in it? We prove to you that we have received seemingly little response coming from that also, right? But lastly, right, they push this upon us, right, saying that rebellion is the only platform for, we don't think so, because rebellion is not the only element portrayed in these teenage novels. You can have diplomatic talks and etc. also, right? It's simple logic. We don't think you should generalize that. Lastly, let's talk about how you push for the fight of the existing problems, right? Because coming up from McJar, he's telling us that teenagers shouldn't contribute to the fight because they are not ready for responsible, right? Okay, maybe that somehow happens. We don't think so. Assuming but not conceding, you also need the identity. You also need the identity constructed. And that can only happen when you have the knowledge of these issues. These issues seems dry, but you attract teenagers to construct their identity based on these issues when they feel attracted to this. When you have these novels attracting them to research on their issues, right? These are teenagers who are future leaders of society. When they have the identity how you're going to solve that problem, they can only contribute towards the fight, right? But then Roshan asks us, why books over people, right? We answer, because the fight for particular cause is slow. There is no inspiration now. There's no to little inspiration now. These books may be the only factor that forces teenagers to be attracted and be inspired by these issues. We think we need to allow them this platform for the construction of identity. We think we probably take to this debate.
Let's analyze the world that side opposition lives in, because they want to depict that these teenagers go through things like civil wars, go through things like oppressive regimes that are rights, because the community is institutionalized, faces institutional discrimination. These are not things that are faced by teenagers in everyday lives. These are things that are faced by people in war-torn areas who don't equate teenagers. This tells us why these specific novels, which have exclusive benefits that are not the same as other novels that exist outside. Because novels that promote women's rights, or novels that promote homosexual benefits, or novels that propose things like fighting bullies and not a victim, are all
on other novels. The point is, the difference between these two novels is that this novel in particular contains rebellious nature. The fact that you have to fight authority and that you have to fight someone who's putting you in a and putting you out of your right. I don't think that these are the kinds of environments or situations that teenagers face every single day of their lives. At the very worst, they face bullying, and these novels teach these individuals to fight and beat up bullies. We don't think these are the kinds of measures that have to be taken by individuals or victims who are bullied. We think that more likely they're going to listen to the novels over individuals who have actually got a lot of experiences with real education, with real actual facts that can actually help you make a better decision. Consequences, we never told us how that particular person is worse off than a novel that depicts a false world and a false ending to look at their case and how do we take it down. First, they said it real lives. First of all, the readability makes it worse. So you're more likely that it may have a lot of risk, but at the end of the day, you said it has a happy ending and it'll help you out at the very end of the day. Second, they told us it's about adults. Like, obviously, really, is this debate really about adults? Obviously, a vast majority of teenagers read Hunger Games. A vast majority of teenagers read The Maze Runner. We don't think this debate primarily focuses on it. We don't see any burden on teenagers to fight an oppressive regime or a government that's clamping down on, like, I don't know, minority rights that exist in these circumstances. We don't see how they still stand in this debate. But then they told us these kinds of novels promote gender and how individuals of different kinds of genders or different kinds of sexualities or any like altruistic benefit can actually help these individuals. We are all for novels that exist and help you in these kinds of matters. What we don't want is the rebellious nature that comes these kinds of novels. So maybe both novels have ideas on how you fight bullying, or both novels have ideas that women can also be leaders. But the point and difference in both novels that makes this novel exclusively harmful is the rebellious nature that they want to fight. So all the benefits that they wanted to get can be obtained from other novels that existed that are otherwise shunned under their market that can actually help these individuals in today's debate. We don't think that fighting is necessary for the teenager, especially when teenagers are going to fight against authorities that are doing things in the best interest of those teenagers, making the lives of these teenagers better, because all they want to do is hang out with these individuals, not really considering the future of these individuals at this point in time, which is why parents know more than the book. They tell you in today's debate, why would they ignore? First, we told you that the rebellious nature is necessarily harmful to a lot of individuals, especially to teenagers who are already rebellious, who become more rebellious, but people who are not be a part of this environment and are forced and pushed into this environment. Their response was, oh no, they become the Nazis and it's not far-fetched. Obviously, they don't go around kill people, but they become more rebellious and more likely to defy whatever you say, even if it's in the best interest of you. We don't think that necessarily is beneficial to begin with. But next, we told you that these individuals will make more calculated, less rational decisions when it comes to making decisions. Because novels and books often depict happy endings, especially when there's like a 1 to a million chance that you'll make that shot. We think in these circumstances, it promotes and makes you more likely to make decisions that are more risky and more dangerous to you. We don't think that the reality that is depicted in the novel can be equated to the reality that you face in everyday life. We think that these are the kinds of decisions that make, these are the kind of things that make children and teenagers more impressionable, and we don't want them to fall victim to their own false decisions. It could be fatal for them. We do not want them to suffer.